I mean, blue wall, baby, that was always going to be a blue wall night. And
the idea that if Joe Biden said the wrong word at a certain time or wasn't able to come up with the word he wanted to say at a certain time, the idea that that's worse, that these two parties do not have the same rules. It's like two football teams where, offside is a 20-yard penalty for you, and it's no penalty for this other team. We heard Donald Trump say that he had no trouble retrieving from his racist thoughts.
I think there's probably another layer to it, which is education. And I think when it's all said and done, what you're going to see is a huge divide over people who are college educated and not college educated. If the working class, non-college educated voter is now increasingly a Republican voter, Democrats have to rethink the way in which they sell their policies. And working class voters also need to be more engaged in understanding these two parties.
Vice President Kamala Harris picks up the 7 electoral votes in Connecticut. State to call, and this is a big one. Trump has won the state of North Carolina tonight.
Major projection. Donald Trump will win the state of North Carolina.
Former President Donald Trump will win the state of North Carolina. Vice President Harris will win New Mexico.
Vice President Harris will indeed win the state of Virginia.
The energy is really starting to come alive here at Trump headquarters. He's very excited and energized, and that's something, forgive me, a lot going on here.
Now to the Harris headquarters.
Well, Kira, I can tell you there has been a real vibe shift. Starting to see some people that are leaving. There's a real concern that's starting to build as they look at the margins.
I think Democrats are kind of coming to grips with a stubborn reality.
People say they still are holding out hope, even though at this particular time she seems to be underperforming in all the things that they thought she would do well.
Times is calling North Carolina for Trump.
So that's 2 calls. It's over. North Carolina for Trump. For the 88th time in his life, got spectacularly lucky. Trump's going to have the Senate, and he's probably going to have the House. Ooh, if he wins, it's still not over. It's still definitely not over. But right now, every indication is bad.
There's still probably a little antipathy towards a woman being president. And there's probably still some racial antipathy.
I think the Democratic Party has to look inward and not be focused on race and donors and all these things. He wins Wisconsin. That is obviously a world of hurt and probably game over.
Remember January 6th, Donald Trump was finished. Even Republicans were running away from Donald Trump. Donald Trump is done as a national politician. Look at how many counties across America, in nearly 1,000, 993, Donald Trump is overperforming. If you look at the map right now, you would so much rather be Donald Trump.
It's a realignment. This is a realignment of the Republican Party. There is no doubt. It is now fully implemented in the face of what was, to everybody's point, fascism, Hitler, Nazi. This is a major realignment where people could look at all that mass media, all the media covering that one way. Right. And say, I don't believe it.
Donald Trump will win 3 out of the 5 electoral votes from the state of Nebraska. Kamala Harris will win the state of Hawaii.
Once again, for Harris, it's now a vanishingly small map.
Because this number, the Donald Trump lead has grown.
Look, you have to say at this point, you'd rather be Trump.
And what you are seeing is Donald Trump on the precipice of the greatest comeback in American political history.
And I think there was a lot of hope because of just the insanity, can we say, would also carry Harris in. And I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. If you can't flip enough white women, it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not re-electing the person who was responsible for taking those rights away. That message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy.
Right. He won Bros in North Carolina by 21 points. Think of the comeback he has made after the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, in which his party pushed him away. In terms of a political comeback story, leaving aside that he's totally redesigned a party around his views on the economy, immigration, it's already the fact that he's doing so well and it's so close is quite an extraordinary comeback for him.
Well, in addition to not only what happened on January 6th, even following those 2 impeachment trials, a convicted felon multiple federal felony counts against him.
Senior members of his national security team all saying he should not be allowed near power again. He'll do better with African-American voters than any Republican has ever done, with Latino voters better than any Republican has ever done. He's not just changing the party, he may very well be changing American politics.
The Harris campaign is still nauseously optimistic, but I bet they're getting a little sicker now.
People didn't have any surprises here. We do have to remember when it comes to North Carolina, they just went through the hurricane. But they also were victims to a huge amount of misinformation over the last 4 weeks. People knew exactly who they were voting for, so they get what they get.
Harris's only path is to come back in these 3 states, and it's a problem at the moment.
Joe Biden gotten out a year ago. This might be a totally different race. He's got to be thinking about that.
Working class voters are actually mad at everyone. They're mad at the system. They're mad at the establishment.
But this does now look like the Senate is probably going to be in Republican.
This whole thing is we're voting for someone based on a personality of a celebrity business guy because we don't like the economy.
Think about the disconnect here. The same people who are working class voters who are saying, I want my wages increased, are also voting for the candidate, in some cases, who is bankrolled by Elon Musk, who said into a recording device that there would be pain and hardship, which he's not going to feel. He's a billionaire. But there's a disconnect between people's perception that the actor from The Apprentice can make me better. Essentially, you're saying, I want to be under the sort of care, right, of a very rich person who I think will take care of me economically because he was on television.
Women, when you talk about Latinos, those without a college degree, senior citizens, and independents, virtually every possible metric, Trump is outperforming himself.
The vibe is not good, and this is brutal.
It is a good moment for us to prepare for what we think is going to happen. Right now, I think it's fair to say anybody watching would rather be Donald Trump than Kamala Harris.
Alongside the reality that the United States economy is the envy of the world.
It absolutely
That the only reason there's a positive economic outlook globally is because the United States economy is doing so well, it's dragging everybody else upward. It's the best job market in the history of the United States. Inflation is back to where it was, not only just before COVID, but before Donald Trump left office, right? I mean, this is the inflation numbers, the economic growth numbers, the fiscal numbers, the U.S. standing in the world numbers are all off the charts positive. Where all the economic indicators were going down. You would expect it to be a big economically driven change election. But all of our economic indicators are 3 feet high and rising.
And there was nothing else for the Harris campaign to offer or do. They delivered a very strong economy, and they put a plan forth for one going forward. And what Donald Trump has offered is only going to worsen the economy.
There certainly will be some soul searching within the Democratic Party.
From the former president, the vulgarity that we've heard talking about Arnold Palmer. We all remember that comment and the locker room and doing all the Joe Rogan podcasts and the Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off at MSG and all of this.
The gesticulating with the microphone.
The gesticulation at the microphone.
You're pulling at the threads of trying to move the narrative around the idea of women's reproductive health. And there's resistance to that when you're talking about our role in the world. And there's resistance to that. And I think what we're seeing playing out is that resistance to those narratives. I think what we're going to spend time with, if this plays out the way it seems that Donald Trump wins this election, is trying to understand what that resistance was about. What is it about our supporting Ukraine that you did not like beyond the talking points? What is it about women's reproductive health that did not move you enough? Real consideration about whether or not Trump hits the national popular vote here tonight.
I wonder how much it's voters consciously saying, I'm voting yes on this, no on this, yes on this, and not more just a kind of feeling about Donald Trump and his strength and the fear-mongering he's done around immigration and the fuzziness he's had on women's rights. And, I'm not entirely sure it is a sort of list of kind of policy
if he
pros and
declares
cons.
victory, he hasn't won the race yet. There is still a potential path to 270 electoral votes.
And I'm going to go to Jake for a major projection.
And CNN can project that Georgia will go to Donald Trump.
This is a big one. 16 electoral votes going to former President Donald Trump. He wins the key state of Georgia.
The Sun Belt is basically gone, and they're looking at the blue wall, and they're still insisting that it is possible. But this is, again, a very, very bad news.
If Kamala Harris comes back at this point and wins, when the Trump people are absolutely convinced that they're going to win, and the odds are with them, the Trump people would be furious.
I mean, they are celebrating right now.
We're doomed. Speaking of doomed, Georgia has just been called for Donald J. Trump.
I don't know if I have my rosary beads on me.
Continues to trend the wrong direction for Kamala Harris.
Weak Democrat. And that's why they keep losing to ridiculous, moronic clowns. These Democratic leaders are simpletons. Kamala Harris, I'm full of joy. Have no interest in listening to a single Democratic politician ever again.
In the battleground state of Georgia in the presidential race, Donald Trump has prevailed.
Any of the worst things.
And let me just interject for a moment. We have eyes on Howard University right now. We can tell you that Vice President Harris is not expected to speak tonight. A statement from the Harris campaign co-chair expected to address this crowd at Howard momentarily. Do we have that?
Good evening, Howard. You won't hear from the vice president tonight.
A short and to the point statement.
Yes, you heard that right. The crowd, you can probably see behind me the rush to the exits. I mean, as soon as he said that, people turned on their heels and they were out of here. The evening was getting increasingly somber as people realized what this map is looking like. Your victory party, which was in another part of town, at what point they turned off the TV set and just piped up the music because the room was starting to get increasingly somber. So talk to people who expressed disappointment. Really is still a lot of people who are holding on to hope, trying hard to hold on to hope.
They're going to string people along into thinking this is going to happen.
It's hard to ignore the fact that this is the mirror image of 2016 when John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, came out around the same time of night and said, we're still counting votes and you won't hear from her tonight, you'll hear from her tomorrow.
And if Republicans take this moment in time to not play games and focus on the issues, they can grow it the next time. Otherwise, it's going to be very competitive in 2 years.
She's got to win Pennsylvania. If she doesn't win Pennsylvania, it's over.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Again, he is not at 270 yet. She has not lost this race, but you don't have to be a weatherman.
There's still a path. There's still a path.
And they hate us because we're right and they're wrong. They're always wrong. And they hate us for being right. Okay? The lying sons of bitches on mainstream media who will smear you to no end. We got to destroy that mainstream media that is filled with lies on top of lies. Those are the same goddamn liars that told you that Joe Biden was totally fine, that he was young and he was dynamic behind the scenes, and it wasn't a problem at all. Wakey. They're lying to you. Why do you think they keep losing? Loss after loss after loss. They're obvious liars. Fire them all! Fire them all! And if you don't, okay, then keep losing to buffoons. You go, no. Oh, the Democrats, no.
What does that say to you? What does this mean?
And then when she is asked in the closing days of the campaign what she would have done differently, and her answer is, there is not a thing that comes to mind. That may have been the single most devastating answer that she made.
It was those words and the pause, too, because, so much of political campaigns, as you know, is the visual, it's the moment. And she did pause, and it was just, in that moment, you knew that is not what the voters who feel like the economy is issue number one. You talked about that moment, too, perhaps being one of the defining moments.
And that she never really was able to give that solid answer of how she would differentiate herself.
I was riding on a bit of a vibe, in a sense, in the final stretch, because she did feel like she had energy. But the fundamentals have been against her from the outset. Biden's unpopularity was dragging her. She had opportunities to create distance with him, And I think chose not to. I think it's a respectful thing. You don't want to throw your boss under the bus.
This isn't a victory because of better mechanics or, Trump had a better ground game. This is a matter of people making a decision, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian in this country, that you were tired of the open border. You were tired of hearing about how the economy is great when you didn't feel it. You were tired about the sanctuary cities. You're tired about some of it's economic, some of it's cultural, all of these things. And people are making a conscious decision in this country to say, I've had enough of this stuff, completely repudiating it.
It might not be a perfect messenger, but the message resonates. People don't like to be talked down to. The Puerto Ricans would come out. He's winning those votes. Looks like he may win the popular vote. Right? There's going to be a reckoning in America that people are going to have to sit back and say, maybe some of these things Trump's espousing are not crazy. Maybe he's right. Right? Maybe the Democratic Party needs to come back to the center if they want to be competitive again.
I hear what you're saying. They did everything that they knew how to do, and it's going to be harder than it should be tomorrow for them to hold their heads up. And they're not the only people who are hurting tonight. If you're a parent of a trans kid, your child's face was used as a springboard to power for somebody. Oh, look at the elites. They're going to get their comeuppance. It's not the elite that's going to pay the price. It's people who woke up this morning with a dream and are going to bed with a nightmare.
Democratic Party let those black women down. Not Donald Trump.
The trajectory we are on is an overwhelming Donald Trump victory.
This brings a legal windfall to him if he wins tonight.
I would also point a finger at the Democrat Party. I mean, they should have had an open contest. They should have let their leaders of their party pick their nominee, but I don't think it would have mattered. The fact that Kamala Harris is going home tonight, I think, is amateur hour. She has an obligation to speak. She's leaving the country hanging now all night.
There can be many reasons for that. I would say one of them was a very effective Trump ad, what she said on The View when they asked her, what would you change? She said, not a thing.
It was, without question, and we've been saying this all year, the most professional campaign that Trump has had in his 3 runs for president.
I'm still absorbing all this. It's a lot. But the policy implications for planet Earth are yet to be known.
So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
By 3% or more. At least in the county right now, and so you come in full county there. So there you see, but that's states, yeah. So in counties, in 58 counties,
there were Biden stalwarts who argued that kicking him out of the nomination was a mistake. Now, I don't know that I buy that because I don't know that the Joe Biden of 2024 is the Joe Biden of 2020. But what do you think?
I think that, well, come out of this map to have this conversation. After the debate, all of the energy collapsed. The debate you moderated with Dana, the Biden-Trump debate, the air came out of the Democratic balloon. Joe Biden was going to get blown out.
So you think it would have been worse because Minnesota and Virginia, New Mexico, Colorado, those would have been...
Would the Democrats have lost those in the end? I don't know the answer to that, but all of the Democrats would have broken with the president. It would have caused amazing dissidence in the Democratic Party. Donors were not going to give money. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to the President of the United States, but have you seen anything? The Vice President of the United States looks like she's about to lose the presidential election. She was campaigning vigorously from the second she got the nomination up until the votes counting today. Is there any evidence on the table that the President of the United States could do half of what she did?
No.
A third of what she did. I mean,
no.
we could go. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean to the President of the United States.
No, and we saw over the last week him calling Trump supporters garbage, et cetera.
It's Donald Trump at the center, who is now comfortable with the levers of power. When he was elected to the presidency in 2016, he wasn't prepared for the presidency. He now enters the presidency once again fully comfortable, and he has allies around him who are reflecting the total ideological shift, a new paradigm in American politics.
Be the greatest comeback in political history. Democrats have lost touch with everyday Americans. Beyonce doesn't pay my bills. Democrats turn their back on us, and if you turn your back on us, eventually we're going to turn our back on you. It's a wake-up call here. That's the feeling in the room for Democrats.
Well, those guys had 2 Make America Great hats on.
I saw someone with a really large one. Yeah.
As we look now at what we have, Pennsylvania. Is this a call, ladies and gentlemen? We are now projecting that Donald J. Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania. Vice President Harris has really no path going forward. It's vanished. This is historic. Biggest political phoenix from the ashes story that we have ever seen.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a huge achievement for Donald Trump.
He's leading here. He's leading here. He could get a congressional vote there. There's another one at Maine he could possibly get. Just pick it. Then you just look at the map. He's leading here, leading here, leading here, and leading there, and he needs 2.
That's just rough.
I've said this before. He's the single greatest political athlete I've ever seen. He also ran a traditional campaign. He connected with voters on issues. He talked about the things that mattered most to voters.
I mean, Kamala Harris has tried her best to create these accents like, you better thank a union member, all of these things that she's done to try to appeal to this community, even going on Oprah Winfrey's talk show or whatever that was to say, oh, I'll pull out my gun and shoot someone that tries to come into my house. I mean, this has become nonsensical to the point that I don't know if we're looking at Medea runs for president or not. I mean, this is outstanding what has happened.
NBC News, ABC News, and CNN have all called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. This election is over. Establishment Democrats, they did this to you.
It's not enough to say democracy's at stake. Because the American people are like, yeah, I don't really feel that. I don't think that. Now, even though, ironically, in our own exit polling, folks were like, a democracy was important to them, right?
Well, but just to dig into that for a second, yes, but majority say democracy under threat, 75%, but among voters who believe that, half went for Harris and half went for Trump.
And remember, Donald Trump said it was a huge win for democracy. So his people also think that he's protecting democracy.
The fact is that when you go back to January 6th of 2021 to today, it is an extraordinary comeback. He was a pariah.
Everybody who, even those who are big supporters of Donald Trump, would tell me, well, now they're loud and proud. People who are MAGA are very open about it, and so on and so forth. One of the most extraordinary dynamics that we didn't necessarily see coming was that if you look at just these exit polls across these states and then nationally, there still was a hidden Trump vote. The big term of 2024, Anderson, is the manosphere, and we're all living in the manosphere now.
Dana,